Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Syngenta Canada, Alberta Wheat Commission, and C&M Seeds.
Peter Johnson at Wheat Pete, RealAgriculture.com, and we're here with another Real Wheat Growers. I'm here with Shawn Schill from Shaw Ridge Farms at Arthur, and unbelievable, Shawn, I just can't tell you how excited you made me.
Yeah.
Had a field where the wheat out-yielded your corn. You got to tell me about that, because wheat should out-yield corn, but it rarely does. So how big was the yield, and how'd you get there?
Pete, the yield on that particular farm and the variety itself was Branson. The yield was an average across the scale of 4.2 metric ton dry.
154 bushels per acre, 154 bushel per acre wheat. Awesome, yep.
And the average corn yield on that particular farm is 4.89, I believe is the number. So yeah, we did surpass a corn yield, an average corn yield for a farm.
So 4.08 on corn, 4.2 on wheat, right? Yes. Yeah. So I want to make sure that people, just because that is big. So and you farm a lot of acres, Shawn. So this year you're pretty happy with your wheat yield. Where do you think you'll end up overall?
Actually, this year I believe that our overall we're about 1,500 acres into our harvest now, and that's about 2/3 done. Right now we're averaging just about 3.4 metric ton per acre, and if that pace keeps on for the balance of harvest, which I believe it will, it'll be a lifetime record for me. It'll be the biggest that we've ever grown. Yeah,
3.4, that's 125 bushel average across 2,000 plus acres.
Yep.
That, my friends, is a real wheat grower, by golly.
Yep.
So Shawn, really intrigued as we've chatted. So you're doing a lot of things right, and the front end I think you've got sort of figured out, although we're standing in a field and I'm looking at this, and this was planted with a hoe drill, wasn't it, Shawn?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, oh, drive a wooden stake through my heart, a hoe drill, but you also have a 7.5-inch drill as well?
Absolutely, yes. So we, the majority of our acres are planted in 7.5. We brought the hoe drill in for high residue planting after canola crops. That was the main driver for that. But yes, we are 7.5-inch row, and we believe that the majority of our wheat will still stay in that row width. Maybe even shrink that row width in the future if we could justify the additional yield that we need to do that.
Yeah. So the hoe drill really, and I find this really interesting because a lot of producers from Western Canada this spring that were disc drill guys were having real issues with heavy residue. The discs seem to hairpin that residue. Right. As much as I hate hoe drills from a seed depth standpoint, this is 12-inch centers on a 3-inch paired row, so it's still wider than I'd like, but interesting that in those really high residue situations, this is where you go. So I think that's interesting from a Western Canada perspective. And you're using seed placed MAP and all those things. Yeah. So you mentioned head counts. You actually do head counts?
Absolutely, yes.
So that's a wow. So tell us a little bit about your head counts this year.
Our average head count was anywhere from the low end was like 38, the high end was 50, kind of average in the 42 to 45 heads per foot row. Yep. And which gets you into that 80-ish type of head count on a square foot basis. So we're hopefully in the future we want to drive that number towards 90 or 100 maybe on the outer edge, but that's where I believe our yield's going to come from in the future.
So you're really trying to, and that's it's you're looking at 50 heads per foot a row in 7.5-inch rows. Yeah. That's where we get up to that 80 or that 90, and those are like typically. If I walk into a field and I get 65 or 70, I think that's got really good yield potential. Right. So you're driving that even farther. So that's really interesting from a yield standpoint. So I think the other thing that we talked about that's kind of totally not where most people have gone, is you've switched your management significantly from the push at the start to now you're pushing at the tail end. So,
right.
so tell me a little more about that.
So we've basically, in the last 2 years, we've decided, or even 3 years, we've decided to relax the front end management of our crop. We are trying to drive head counts by seed rate, and get as many mains as we can, and drop our tiller rates. With that, and what we do in the spring is actually we're focused on plant health, and if as long as everything's healthy, we're not using fungicides on the front end. If there's a problem that needs to be taken care of, we will take care of it. But we're actually even we're pulling back our nitrogen in the springtime, and what we're doing is we're actually delaying some of our actually the timing of application and the amount that we're applying. We're usually using between 70 and 80 units of N, 15 units of sulfur, and we're doing that on a delayed window. Then we take everything that we would have spent in the spring, and we're moving it back to head development. And this year actually we did a bunch of 2-pass fungicides, and we drove probably 60% of our nitrogen went in at the boot stage.
At the boot stage, wow.
So we're using dry Amethyst, which is has been we actually believe it's a very fantastic product. It's a premium product, but we're getting premium results for it.
Yeah, so really interesting. So let me understand. Up front, so kind of late April-ish or in that time frame, you're putting on 70 pounds of nitrogen as urea, or
we're doing everything in the springtime. We are doing liquid.
Liquid. Okay, so 28%.
We're using 20%, and we're using ATS, and we're using chafer bars so we're getting that even, consistent pattern. And then our late nitrogen application is done with a high clearance. Actually, it's a BBI top dressing spreader. Yep, is what we're using.
So cool. So we got, and you're putting about 10 pounds of sulfur with that early 28 with the ammonium thiosol.
10 to 12.
10 to 12. So we have 70 of nitrogen and 12 pounds essentially early, or when most of us are out there putting on all of our nitrogen. And then you're coming back, and your total nitrogen then would be how much, and your total sulfur would be how much?
Our total, we're about between, depending on the farm, we're between 160 and we have some rates up to 190 of N, and our total sulfur package this year is about 30 pounds.
Wow, so really driving that nitrogen, and driving it late, which is quite a bit. So what about standability? You've mentioned that your neighbors have some standability issues. What about you?
We had zero wheat stand issues. All our wheat, actually, there was no lodging, and I think it has to do with a lot of that driving that nitrogen backwards into that boot stage, and really not it's been fantastic.
Yeah. So, and it really does speak to the fact that the stem is already set on that earlier nitrogen.
Yep.
So cool stuff. So last on this whole back end package, and I think you're right that it mentioned that the front end, you got to make sure there's no disease there. If you have early stripe rust, you got to control.
Right. But
if not, you save that money. And so you've gone to a 2-head spray system.
Yes. So we did a Prezzero, probably about 0, or just at that 0 day, and then we came back in 7 days later with Caramba. So we did a 2-pass system, and it was amazing the plant health that we got out of that plant. And actually when it came down to harvest, it was almost amazing the amount of plant health that was still left. We were combining 15% mature grain and green stems, and actually flag leaf was still green. It was really quite amazing.
And so tough on the combine because you're grind. But what about test weights?
Test weights were actually once again we were higher than the normal from what we're seeing from the local area. Test weights have been ranging between 64 and 66 pounds, which is very, very heavy. Like that's exceptionally heavy wheat. And the other factor that we see on this back end management is that we're driving kernel size. Like the size of kernel is almost staggering. Like it's
Yep.
big fatties, and it's just amazing looking weed.
Yeah, awesome. So, talk about a real wheat grower, 154 bushel per acre wheat, smoking his corn, over 2,000 acres and looking like we're going to be 125, which is a record, but still incredible, and really a different thought process about how to get there, because we're moving it all to the tail end, or a big chunk of it to the tail end, and driving it with high nitrogen rates, high sulfur rates, and a 2-pass late fungicide. Really, really interesting stuff, Shawn. Thank you so much. Real Wheat Growers. Peter Johnson at Wheat Pete, RealAgriculture.com. We'll be back with more Real Wheat Growers, because this is absolutely amazing stuff.